So by way of introduction, if you're not familiar with the FinOps Foundation, we are a nonprofit trade association, and our whole mission is to try and help advance the people who do this work of increasing the value of cloud, wherever you live, whatever kind of stage you are. We're all employees of the Linux Foundation. If you've heard of, you know, Linux, obviously it's the kernel, open source kernel that runs a lot of computing things in the world. Linux Foundation is also hosts Kubernetes and a lot of very well-known pieces of open source software. And we are going to dig in a bit later about kind of things we do, but our program's all about helping connections for you, helping advance your careers, and really helping deliver open source best practices and standards. We are a vendor agnostic and cloud agnostic organization. So we may touch on things related to AWS or Google or Tencent or Microsoft, but we don't say anyone is better or worse. Same thing with the vendors and software consultants. They may be involved, but very important code of conduct issue. If you are a vendor at any point, we ask on these calls not to do any pitching, talk about where you're from and share stories from, what you've seen in the industry, but don't pitch your product, don't pitch your services. We're here to hear and learn from the best practices part of that. We're going to jump back to this at the end, but we asked some of you to share with us kind of what was working and not from the FinOps Foundation. We sent out a survey. We had some results come in. We're going to dig into those a little bit later, but we're going to post here during this conversation. If you can jump in the chat, there should be a link going in there shortly. If you didn't take that survey, we'd love to hear from you, and we'll share the results at the end to kind of talk about what you want to see more of in the community, what you want to see from the foundation, and hear your voices on that. So with that, a little bit of introduction on the space for those of you who maybe haven't been at one of our events for a while. FinOps is, a synonym for cloud financial management or cloud cost management or anything you want to call for managing the value of cloud, right? Getting the most efficiency out of it. We've seen the term really explode in the last 5 years since we've started looking at this area in space, and it's been really cool to see all the different folks around the world come together. We've got almost, or a little over, 8,000 people in the foundation now in, I want to say, over 100 different countries who are all kind of facing the same challenges, right? Figuring out how to understand your cloud cost, how to allocate it to different groups and teams, how to drive ownership, how to optimize and save in some cases, how to drive better unit economics, and really do that FinOps transformation in the organizations that you're all a part of. And on the back of this, the FinOps Foundation has really worked to develop a global community of people kind of at all stages of the FinOps journey and maturity. And Joe, Joe's our director of community. You can take us through a little bit of the highlights here.
Absolutely. So this is a very fun slide because it is quite global. You can get lots of regions around the world represented on this slide. In Latin America, that Últimos Ingresos Hacktown 2022 one is always catches my eye. That was down in Brazil. The one smack dab in the middle with those good-looking people who work for the FinOps Foundation, that was KubeCon just a few weeks ago. And you got all the conferences are happening right this last month, and reInvent's coming up. Hopefully, some of you, if any of you are going over to reInvent, hopefully we get to see you in 2 weeks or so. And then there's a lot of meetups here. And there's one thing I'm going to call out is that I don't have any photos from this region yet. So I want to be able to change that and get your lovely faces on these screens here. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in slides to come.
Awesome. Yeah, and we do have a few meetups that started there. And one of the things we'd love to help support wherever you are is to get that going so you can meet others in your area to, kind of connect and advance your practices. On the back of this, one of the things we've seen in the growth of the term, and yeah, awesome. There's Sarah, Sydney meetup coming soon. Good. One of the things we've seen is just a lot of people, picking up the practice in terms of listing on LinkedIn their skills. But we have found, conversely, that there are more people looking to hire in the space, more jobs out there than there are necessarily skilled folks, because it is a new emerging discipline. So we do have this jobs.finops.org. You're welcome to post jobs there if you're hiring. If you're looking to see what's out there, definitely check that out. There's a featured one there from AIA Group that's based in Malaysia. We're going to hear a little bit from Keith at AIA, based in Hong Kong right now. But so please definitely take a look there and share the jobs out there, because we're finding this space is still nascent enough that folks don't always know where to look or what to search for. So we're trying to collect all of those in one handy place. The other thing about this site that's great, if you're hiring and you don't quite know yet what the job description should be, it's a great place to go grab, expertise, skills, and different ways to talk about it. If you're not already in our Slack, this is a fantastic way to do asynchronous communication with our global community. There are almost 4,000 people in here, maybe just over now, across a bunch of different rooms talking about sometimes cloud-specific things. There's an AWS Google channel, a Tencent channel, an Alibaba channel. There's a mix of those, but also just general concepts in FinOps. How do I start to understand my spend and allocate it? How do I start to optimize it? How do I get organizational adoption going? So definitely check that out. This was a thread, recently that 35 people discussing, the best coverage rates they thought for savings plans, reserved instances, committed use discounts. And if you're not in there yet, let us know. We can help, get you involved, sort of the best path. So with that, our foundation has a big mix of leadership from a lot of different companies around the world. I think we have 5 or 6 people based in Asia Pacific. So Mike Fuller, we're about to hear from Atlassian, is one of the founding board members of the FinOps Foundation. I think, Mike, you've probably held more roles and responsibilities and various things over the years than anybody in here. We got Mark Shan from Tencent, who's based in China, Dhruv Kohli from HCL from India, Keith Austin, who we mentioned we're going to hear from shortly as well. And Rahul, I didn't know, from Subramanian from CloudFix based in India. Do you mind doing an introduction? Because I don't think we have you actually speaking, so I want to give you a chance to meet everybody as well. Oh, maybe we lost Rahul. He was here. All right, well, hopefully if he comes back, you meet him as well. So yeah, big mix of folks, practitioners doing the practice, vendors, platforms, clouds, consultants. The idea is to bring everybody together to work to support this community. So with that, I would love to pass to Mike Fuller, who's the co-author of the old and new FinOps book, to kind of tell a little bit about what we've developed in the last few months.
Thanks, JR. I'm sorry, there's a siren going past. If you hear that, it should be one moment. So I guess we have had the book out, the V1 of the book, for a couple of years now. The beginning of the year, we were approached to think about what would a second edition look like, and after a bit of work with collaboration with JR, we sort of come up with a few extra areas we thought that we should cover within the book. And then once we got started writing, we couldn't stop touching everything, and so basically every page of the book has probably had some form of edit or added content or refresh. We've done a lot more user stories and quotes throughout the book, so you'll hear more from your local community and global community, from people getting heavily involved in doing FinOps over the last few years. So now we've got a lot more of those stories. Chapter-wise, we ended up a whole different sort of range of chapters. We took a lot of the work that's been happening in the foundation over the last couple of years around adopting, forecasting, sustainability is a really awesome piece to see added to the book. And so, you can sort of read some of the new chapters there that we've listed. But the other thing that we really sort of took a shift on was realizing that maybe the nirvana state of FinOps isn't necessarily unit economics, but it's what that delivers within the business. And so we really got to data-driven decision-making around cloud spend as the main sort of focus of where we want to take our FinOps practices. And so, we should see it February-ish next year. We're just going through the production process now. So, really excited to hear everyone's feedback when that comes out.
So, Mike, did you think the second edition was going to be as hard as it was? What was the hardest part for you?
I think fool me once the first time, and then shame on me the second. But no, we're definitely took a lot more effort. But I think it's a really strong book. I think we'll be really happy to see what people think.
Yeah, I think the big thing we tried to do, as Mike said, was just add a lot more stories and a lot more learnings. We're going to hear later about from the working groups that the foundation is doing around a lot of these areas, sustainability, around adopting FinOps, and we were able to draw on the last 3 years of the work the community has done in those working groups to really flesh out a lot of these concepts. FinOps is very much evolving, right? We've seen. I was personally really surprised when we went back and reread in depth the text from 2019. How much had changed, and things like how much we've seen engineering culture become a core integrated part of FinOps, where it felt like it was off to the side a few years back, and the way that we talk about that and partner. So yeah, definitely keen to get all your inputs once it lands, and yeah, that'll be coming out, as Mike said, at the end of February. So the other thing that recently launched, that we'd love to get your inputs on, if you haven't looked, we have an annual survey we do that is free and open to everybody at data.finops.org. We are just announced yesterday, I think it was, the data collection for the third edition of this. So we're going to be, if you go to the link there, data.finops.org, there's a link on top. We're asking you to go take 15, 20 minutes at some point to fill this out. This survey gives you data around how to benchmark, ultimately, your own practice. It helps the community understand where people are struggling, where the successes are, how they're accomplishing their FinOps practice. So we're collecting data from all over the world. The more data we can get from your respective countries and regions, the more we can slice it up to give you relevant information later, right? So what we're hoping to do in February is come back, or maybe March once it's fully out, and do a slice of this data for different parts of the world, understanding how the challenges are different, how the cloud usage is different, et cetera. So if you haven't seen this, go look at the old version from last year, which is at data.finops.org, and then please consider taking the survey. It's going to be open for, I think, about another 6 weeks for collecting data. So you don't have to do it right now, but hopefully bookmark it and come back. And would love to get your insights on this as part of it. Cool. So with that, would love to introduce, you just met Mike, who we heard a bit from, a few other folks. And Joe, do you mind introducing the Ambassador Program and the folks you're going to be hearing from today?
Absolutely. So one of the things we launched this year was the FinOps Ambassador Program. So that's that cool purple badge right there. And these are folks who have given a lot of engagement in multiple different ways to the community. So showcased here are our 3 ambassadors that are in the Asia Pacific region. Michelle and Cleland in Hong Kong, who she was supposed to be here. Unfortunately, something came up and she was unable to join us, but she's been very involved with training FinOps certified practitioner classes and being involved in a number of working groups. Mike Fuller wrote a book about FinOps.
Some FinOps things.
Yeah, some FinOps things and books. And Sara Gadallah, who has done a tremendous amount of work with us and has led up the Sydney meetup group. They're tremendous assets for you to leverage. I'm normally sleeping at this time. I'm a very sleepy person. So these are excellent folks to reach out to when you want to bounce FinOps ideas off of anyone or just get some advice. Definitely reach out to them. With that, I want to introduce Sara Gadallah, who is about to do a presentation here on the next slide.
Cool. Thank you, Joe. Hi, everyone. I'm Sara, or Sara, as I like to call myself. I'm a senior FinOps analyst in Atlassian. Don't worry, GR, I don't mind Sara as well. Both work. I'm a senior FinOps analyst in Atlassian. Today, I'll be talking about my FinOps journey, or what I would like to call my crawl, walk, run story in FinOps. And in telling my story, I'll also be telling the story of how we do FinOps in Atlassian, which I think something that might be interesting for people, of how we do things in Atlassian and how working with Mike Fuller feels like. So yeah, let's get started. Cool. So for me, it all started in July 2020 when I came across a role on LinkedIn about what I thought is a tech BA role in data. And then through the interview process, I realized it's a role in FinOps team. And of course, the first thought was, what the hell is FinOps? I haven't heard the term before. And for the next 2 months, I spent some time knowing about the cloud. Of course, I had general knowledge of the cloud, but I spent some time learning about the cloud, learning about FinOps, read the FinOps book, which is, I think, is a message for anyone here who have no experience with FinOps or cloud. Rest assured, you're not alone. I was in the same position 2 years ago. And then after 2 months, I ended up joining Atlassian in September 2020 as the first hire in the dedicated team. And to clarify, Atlassian already had Mike, who's been working in FinOps for a while, working along with another analyst. They established the pipeline. They had some reserved instances and saving plans, but they were not a dedicated FinOps team. They were doing this as part of the cloud engineering team. So when I actually joined, I joined Mike and the other analysts and the shared manager between cloud engineering and FinOps as the first hire. So as I hit the ground running, I spent the first few weeks getting my head around the acronyms and the complexity of our bill, like fully loaded cost, on-demand, reserved instances, where to find this information, the size and the complexity of our bill. And of course, my head was spinning for the first few weeks. And then once I get some momentum, I start working on the usage optimization. Of course, there is no better way of saving money than actually turning off things we don't use. So in Atlassian, we actually do use AWS recommendations of the low utilized resources. We enrich this with some data from the cost usage reports, and we make this available for the engineers and the services teams to know their waste and provide this as like potential waste recommendations. Once I started doing this, I came across the first challenge, and I think it's a global challenge in FinOps world, which is getting engineers to action things. So we thought of like different ways to go around this. And one of the workarounds we've had is that we started presenting in a weekly forum, operational forum we have in Atlassian called World, where it has the head of departments, the cost center owners, the engineering managers, etc. We started to have a weekly FinOps update where we actually call out the top 10 business units in potential waste, in usage optimization opportunities. We kind of tell them, you're the top 10, go action these. And we show them the reports and data where they need to look at to action things. And this actually got us some attention and got some things moving in Atlassian around cost, cloud cost, waste, and kind of cost awareness. So we started to get some visibility and awareness inside Atlassian. And then the next step was working with the finance. So any FinOps practitioner knows that the core job is just to liaise between finance, engineering, products, and different teams. So I started working with the finance on a data set that was only available for the head of the engineer, like the head of teams and the cost center's owner, which is the budget and forecast data. So for everyone's benefit in Atlassian, we do actually have a budget for the cloud cost and the cloud spend for every division. But this data was only in the planning tool, only accessible for the head of departments. So we work with the finance to make this data available in our data lake and available in our FinOps reports, which we think it was a key factor in the change of the mindsets in Atlassian. Once you make engineers aware, they start to be accountable, and making people accountable for their cloud usage is like the first FinOps concept. So we started to make people more aware, more engaged with their division, so they became kind of more cost conscious. And then I moved to the other pillar of cost optimization, which is rate optimization. So we started to put more effort and time into our saving plans and rate optimization, which is, I think it ties back to the slide that JR just shared of what's the benchmark, what's the standard. So in Atlassian, we follow the industry benchmark of 80%, but we didn't have 80% coverage in all of our products. So we started to put more momentum in this, and it was actually very good to start to see the financial benefits of optimizing the rates. In Atlassian, for everyone's benefit, we do follow a hybrid model. Like we as FinOps, we drive the rate optimization, but we don't buy without the consent of teams, just to make sure they'll be using the same services and product for 12 months. We avoid any waste on this. So we came up with the data, we reach out to the owners, we drive it, but we don't buy without their consent. And then in June 2021, we had the FinOps team forming. So a few weeks after I joined, another data engineer joined. So it was Mike as the cloud engineer, me as the analyst and another analyst, and then the data engineer joined. But unfortunately, the other analyst left a few months after I joined. So in June 2021, we had the other analyst, and we also had a dedicated manager for the team. So our FinOps team started to form. We started to have the perfect team of like cloud engineer, data engineer, to analysts and a manager working on everything FinOps in Atlassian. Of course, we've done a lot of things, but I'm just taking you through the milestones. And then we had an incident of where a service bug was costing thousands of dollars, and no one even noticed. And by the time we noticed, I think it cost us over 100K or something. But then it raised the question from our end around anomaly detection. So we started to use AWS Forecast to build anomaly detection alerts for us as a team, as FinOps. And then we started thinking, okay, why don't we make this visible to the teams? So we have another ritual in Atlassian called TakeOps, which is basically operational on-demand reports that the team run for a lot of operational metric. We have already cost module introduced as part of this operational report. We included in it kind of warning alerts for anomaly. If your service overspent, we give you warning, your service overspent, go check the service spent, and we give you links for reports. And then as Atlassian was going through growth phase, we started thinking of embedding an early FinOps culture in Atlassian. So all what we're doing was good. We were getting attention. We were getting people to action things, but we wanted to be more proactive in setting a FinOps culture within Atlassian from the very beginning, especially with the amount of new joiners joining us. So the team came together. We started to form something we call FinOps 101 training. We put the curriculum together. We thought of making 3-4 minutes video about each topic, which I'll share in the next slide. But we started to put 3-4 minutes videos of different topics of what we want engineers and new joiners to know generally about FinOps and Atlassian and how we do things. We recorded the videos ourselves. Each one of us recorded a few videos, and we actually enrolled this in the onboarding pack for the new joiners. So we have this as part of the onboarding experience. We've actually done a lot of things, but this is in a nutshell our highlights of the journey of my FinOps, the FinOps team journey and everything. And here I am. I'm not sure if we're ready to go to the next slide, Joe, or we want to take any questions now. You let me know.
Well, Sara, what was I love the view of this because it's all twisty turny, which is exactly like almost everyone's FinOps journey. What was just real quick, what was your favorite part and what was the most challenging part so far?
I think let me start with challenging, just because I like to leave the best for the last. The challenging part was to get engineers to action things, especially given the value. So sometimes you can have a waste or something that is probably costing you $10. So the engineer look at it as like, no, it's not worth my time. However, you have millions of these, which end up being $10 million a month. But getting engineers to kind of do the link between their small pieces of work and how they all sum up together was challenging. Especially that you as a FinOps person, you look at this and you're like, oh my God, this is 100K a month. But the engineer is looking at it as like, that's $50 a month. It's probably not worth my time. So the question between value and cost and how this can be like a small value for a person, but it ends up being a bigger cost, and getting engineers to action this low value things was one of the challenging parts. The good part about it is I think where you actually reap the fruits of what you've done. So for example, when we focused on the rate optimization, focused on the usage optimization, we really did put a lot of conscious effort. We ended up achieving our saving OKR, which is another, I'd probably say a good practice from Atlassian, is that we have a saving OKR every year. We set for ourselves, for the team, and we track it every month. So we were able to actually exceed that saving OKR once we put the right momentum and effort into the right streams. And it was actually very rewarding, I would say.
I'm getting lots of great questions in the chat, but I'm thinking we're just going to save some of them for the end so we can get Sara.
Yeah, happy to answer all of them in the AME part.
Yep,
Don't worry, I'll answer all the questions.
Perfect. We'll
Absolutely.
Cool.
Sara,
Cool.
I believe on the next slide, yeah, you had a little, because you were talking about the FinOps 101 training. Could you share a little bit more what that's like?
Sure. So we put the structure of the training ourselves on what we want teams or new joiners to pay attention to. So we started with a quick intro to the course, a quick intro to the cloud, and then we started with a high-level introduction to FinOps. What's FinOps? We actually referenced the FinOps Foundation video on the website. We talked a little bit about FinOps Foundation. We talked about our team in Atlassian, what we do, and how to reach out to us for help and where to find different things related to us, documentations and things. And then we start talking about how cloud spend work, the cloud charging model, our monthly bill, the size and the materiality, complexity of the bill, cost allocations, how they work, cost centers data. We also talked about discounts and FinOps report. We have a whole page of like reports and dashboards. We refer to it. We kind of show different reports and dashboards. And then we start talking about the basic expectations from the engineers, which is the more education piece of what we expect them to do going forward, of like tagging, keeping good tagging hygienes, the rituals like Word and TechOps that I mentioned, tips for cost optimization and what to do for cost optimization, talking about both rate and usage optimization, and also some cloud spend awareness. This is basically the structure. Every topic of these had about 3-4 minutes video. It's like in total, I think it was 45 minutes training, which is very doable, especially when you split it into multiple or small videos. So that's the training structure.
Awesome. And then I think I also asked you when we were working with Michelle on presentations, it'd be awesome to show your engagement journey with the community, because definitely one of my pet projects is trying to figure out how to drive engagement in every region around the globe. So wanted you, if you could share your story on being engaged with the community.
Sure. I would love to, NGR, if we can move to the next slide, please. I just had it as a sort of like a quick timeline for everyone. So I actually joined the foundation in October 2020. Of course, I had no idea about the foundation. It was all Mike. So thank you, Mike. So I joined the FinOps Foundation in 2020. And then I took the course of the FinOps Practitioner course in December 2020, which was almost 2-3 months after I joined Atlassian. It was very informative. It was very good. And it felt beneficial because I was doing actually things on hand, so kind of hands-on. So it was good. And then I started to get more involved with the foundation through the Slack community. So following the questions, the questions on different channels, especially the ones about optimizations or so, or the questions channel. And then I decided to be a FinOps practitioner. In my defense, I took the certificate before Mike, so it's good. So I decided it's about time to get the certificate. So I self-studied, I revised the course materials, and I became a certified FinOps practitioner before Mike. And then again, I was doing more work through the foundation. And then I was wondering if we can connect with more more FinOps people in the region. And I asked Mike, and there was no meetups or no, I would probably say, forum in the region, especially with the 4 a.m. and 3 a.m. calls of the foundation. So I reached out to Joe Daly asking if we can start a Sydney FinOps meetup. And I think it came at a good time because Joe himself was looking at ideas of starting Sydney FinOps meetup. And I think anyone who wants to start meetup, regional meetup, please reach out to Joe. It's very easy to get you started. He provided all the materials, templates, ideas, thoughts from people who organized meetups before. It was very good. Like I had very good materials to start on the meetups, and don't be shy and don't be afraid to start meetups in your regions. And then, thanks to my contribution, which I don't think there were a lot of contribution, I was selected as a FinOps ambassador in the region. And yeah, here I am. So it's not really hard to contribute to the community. It's not very, you don't have to take big steps, but I think if you reach out to Joe, you'll find the right support to start the meetups in your region. And that's it. That's my journey in a nutshell.
Did Joe put you up to saying all that? That was great.
No, she didn't say any of the insults about Mike that I was like, she was dirt on Mike.
I do like the competition though. I love that you got certified first. Sara, thank you so much for that journey. We got again a bunch of questions for you at the end here. So we're saving those. We'll circle back. So I want to make sure we cover, get time for everybody's updates here. So, one of the great things that we get to do is not worry about having corporate overlords, and we get to, take moments and things like this to remind ourselves to slow down a little bit. So I put these in here for myself because I always end up talking too fast. So you have to bear with me as I take a moment of self-care here. Want to introduce Ashley from our team, who spoke briefly at the beginning, for those of you who missed her, and runs our Director of Operations, our enterprise program, and wanted to tell us a little bit about some of the folks there and introduce Keith from AIA.
Yeah, thanks. So we have a couple different ways that we partner with different organizations. So we have vendors, CSPs, we have consultants that partner with the foundation and support us in a variety of ways. And this last year, the beginning of 2022, we announced a brand new partnership for enterprises. So this is an enterprise program. And these organizations are really committed to the practice of FinOps. They're making both an investment, and they're all in the community, but they're also contributing in their time. They help with best practices. We've had a couple of them even review the version 2 book that's coming out. They also help us submit a lot of real world use cases. They will be speaking at our FinOps X events. They help us shape our training by doing some peer review of it, giving us feedback on how we can advance that training. The other thing they do is they guide our foundation, and they guide our staff by participating on our governing board. So I just want to mention a few of them. We have Apple, JP Morgan, Fidelity here, and we have AIA. Before I hand it over to Keith, you all probably know who AIA is, but they are one of the largest insurers in Asia with over 100 years of experience. So if you can imagine, that's probably a lot of data centers. So you're next going to hear from Keith, who is the head of the Cloud Center of Excellence. And what I think is so phenomenal about this journey is it is one of the most accelerated transformations I've ever heard of. So it really blew me away when Keith was explaining it too. So Keith, why don't you dive a little deeper into this?
Sure, thanks, Ashley. I appreciate the time. So yeah, it's really exciting to be part of the foundation, right? And I think one of the founding members of the enterprise program this year. So it's really cool to be part of the startup journey there, really. And for me, one of the most or best interactions so far with the group has been a kind of one-on-one chat with Alison McIntyre from Lloyds Bank, and we talked about better forecasting and the work she's doing in some of the working groups with the foundation, and it was really insightful to see that and really helped us on our journey in AA. So it's really cool to get access to those kinds of people. But JR, if we jump into the introduction and just a little bit about AIA, right? Because I think a lot of people probably don't know outside of Asia who AIA is, even down to Australia, even though we operate in Australia, but probably not a very well-known brand. And really for us, we're a people-based insurance organization. And by that, I mean, we don't insure things, right? We insure people. So we offer health and life and well-being services and products and services. So really focused on people. And we're also 100% focused on Asia across 18 markets, 38 million individual policies. And by doing that, we're helping people, millions of people really live healthier, longer, better lives. Next one, please, Joe. So as part of our cloud program, we only started in 2019. We're quite young in cloud, really, when you think about it, when you think about the journey that we've been on so far. And really, we've achieved some amazing results, right? As kind of Ashley alluded to, at the end of 2021, we surpassed 70% in cloud, which is quite phenomenal considering we only started in 2019. And that's really well ahead of the benchmark of 24% that we're seeing in other insurance-based organizations. It's led to a number of benefits, not only helping a group provide a more available infrastructure, but also enable innovation across the environment. So this innovation journey really focuses on our customer stories and how we better provide service to them when they most need it. Our customers rely on products and services in the hardest times of their lives, whether it's during times of illness or other hardship. It's really when customers need ready access to services for claims or other information. With more than half of the customer claims processed via straight-through processing at the end of 2021, we really enabled that customer-focused journey and that promise to customers more than ever before. And really, that's thanks to cloud. We started programs in cloud that just would not have been possible on-prem. The lead times for certain projects and things like that on-prem, were 12, 18 months, for example. In cloud, we're reducing those to less than 3 months, for example. And as you can see through some of the stats, we're supporting massive business processing and amazing service availability.
So Keith, what was some of your initial drivers to move to the cloud? What kind of kicked that off? Because you did a really quick migration.
Yeah, sure. So absolutely, it was a couple of things really, and JR touched on probably lots and lots of data centers and lots of legacy infrastructure out there. That was definitely one point. We were coming to the end of some major data center contracts, etc., and we needed to wrap those up. And it was seen to really move towards digitalization and other initiatives that on-prem infrastructure really wasn't going to cut it for us moving forward. So really, the decision was made to move to cloud to provide that innovation. We looked at across a couple of different clouds, but really at the moment for most of Asia, we're focused on Azure, with some AIA cloud being used in mainland China for regulatory reasons there. But really focused on a single cloud vendor to start with to make sure that we didn't spread ourselves thin, right? So that was the main reason was the data center closures, but also innovation, right? So they were really closely tied together. Another one was cost considerations, right? As we moved into larger innovation projects, the lead times and costs to deploy large sets of infrastructure to do innovation programs was seen as just not viable on-prem, right, from a commercial standpoint. So really, we use the benefits of cloud there to enable that innovation strategy.
That's amazing. So it sounds like there's a combination of speed, innovation. There was the cost driver, so you didn't have to go procure or lease more data centers as well. I mean, that 99.99 is pretty impressive. We probably could have made that even a little bit bigger font there. So congratulations on that. What was the transition like for your staff or like the team, the engineers that were doing this work?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, credit to all the business units out there, really. I mean, you know, groups set the vision and the strategy and the standards and frameworks, etc. But really, it's down to the hard work of the business units in the individual markets, and you can see some of those stats on the right-hand side. Some, you know, great work being done by them. And I think, you know, it's really a testament to business units like Singapore, for example, who really grabbed that at the start and ran with it. And you'll see many white papers out there from the Singapore business unit with Microsoft Azure on some of the fantastic innovation they've done. So you know, it depends. It's market to market, absolutely. But you know, every market has really jumped on this journey with us and pushed forward, which is great. The technical teams and the staff are more than excited to move into new technologies, right? I think all technical people always want to play with the latest and greatest things. So, you know, moving them to cloud was not too much of an effort, really. I think everyone jumped on it. Everyone was excited to do it. Did we need other specialist resources to support, etc.? Of course we did, right? And that's why we set up the CCE in 2019 to assist the business units with that specialist engineering resources as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. If we could just jump ahead to the next slide, I think those are some other good stats to put up and where you're at right now in your journey.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose, you know, one could say we're a little bit late to the FinOps party, you know, just starting this year, you know, with a cloud program kicking off in 2019. But as you guys tell us, right, it's better late than never. You know, we should get started at some point in time, but, you know, the important thing is that we do start. You know, we're well over 80% in public cloud now. I can't give you the real figure. The end of year results announcements and things like that are being formulated at the moment, so they'll come out in Q1 next year. But we're well on our way to that 90% target that we envisaged in 2019. So it's a great story. The remaining 10% on-prem is really, you know, focused on those legacy applications that are not really suited to public cloud today, right? But maybe in the future, you know, things like AS400s, etc. You know, which I don't think anybody's willing to put their fingers into yet for cloud. So we'll see what happens with those over the next, you know, 5 years or so. And you know, always looking to modernize other applications as well. Of course, you know, the migration effort that AIA has gone through has involved a lot of lift and shift. You know, there's no denying that. But business units are now starting to modernize as they are in public cloud. So while the push was there to get it to public cloud, now it's about, you know, realizing all the benefits of public cloud and not just the you know, the lift and shift and availability of the infrastructure as a service, but moving towards those PaaS services and getting further agility.
Hey, Keith, I have a question for you as well. Like,
yes, go ahead, Joe.
You mentioned, like, you know, it's an ongoing process and you know, still learning, evolving, growing. How early did you actually, or what was the driver for you starting like the FinOps practice? I mean, was it something that was planned in the beginning, or did it come in because of cost overruns, or what was the catalyst?
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's a great question, right? I think for us, you know, the main driver for FinOps was around, as we worked through the TDA program, the Technology Data and Analytics program driven by Group. It was around, okay, now we need to start measuring the benefits of cloud. Okay, and how do we do that? So FinOps was just one part of that, right? So we're looking at how we're doing our customer straight through processing, how we're managing our infrastructure, and making sure that we're, you know, managing that infrastructure and that spend effectively, and also the governance layer, right? So there's always that question from regulated industries like ours is, you know, where's the governance and control? So it was twofold. It was about looking at the cost and benefits, but also the governance and controls of what we're running in AIA.
It was one of the interesting things from the last state of FinOps data. We found that the regulated industries, insurance and financial services are the highest adoption of FinOps practices globally are in those. So I guess no surprise for that reason, right?
Yeah. I think we have to show, right, to our regulators, to our auditors, etc., that we do have robust processes and things to operate cloud, right? And now it's not just about the technical operations of cloud anymore. Definitely there is that financial governance that's coming into it as well, and the questions being asked. So yeah, having FinOps aligned, you know, processes, etc., helps answer those questions, you know.
I think we're super excited a year from now to see your journey map and you know, all the big milestones. So we'll be staying close to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So on that, I think, you know, we've reached our go live target already. The year's not finished. We reached our go live targets in only a quarter of operating FinOps in AIA, which was fantastic. So we met those initial kind of go live targets and KPIs, which was awesome. And yeah, we're really looking forward to 2023, right? I think it's going to be a great story, not only for AIA, but also for the foundation and FinOps in Asia, right? So I think we can really be out there and leading the way, as we have done with our public cloud migration.
So I asked you a question. I was like sort of the hard one, but what are you looking at 23? Great plans, but what are you still struggling with, right? And what are you hoping to have like figured out? Come back in a year, like what will you hope to have solved by then that you're not there yet on?
Yeah, so I think we have similar challenges to others, right? I don't think we're any different. You know, the challenges around forecasting is a big one, budget forecasting, et cetera, in cloud is, you know, hence the conversation with Alison from Lloyd's, right, was really insightful. Shared costs, always a big one, right? Especially at a group level. We run many shared services for our business units, of course. So understanding how we allocate those fairly and accurately is always a consideration. And then for the business units themselves, right? Understanding, you know, cost center identification, et cetera, through tagging and other policies and things is probably the main ones, right? You know, making sure that we have, you know, I saw a question in the chat around tagging hygiene. And it is tough, right? Tagging hygiene is probably one of the biggest hurdles that you need to come across. And we knew that FinOps was coming for us. You know, we had very good standards early on from a tagging tagging naming standards. The implementation of such was not so great though. So we had to go back and we had to revisit that and say, okay, well, how do we fix that, right? And how do we make sure that, you know, all new workloads coming onto the platform are tagged appropriately, and then how do we go back and clean up what is already there? So there was massive effort in terms of that before we even brought on a FinOps tool, for example. So yeah, there's definitely lots of challenges, right? But I don't think any different from what we see from other organizations.
I'm always amazed at how complicated getting the tagging right is, and the tagging hygiene, and just how much folks undervalue the effort that's going to go into that, because it's sort of like at the Maslow's hierarchy at the bottom of all the other efforts. Like, we want to get an optimization, we want to forecast, but we can't because our tagging data is broken. And yeah, forecasting just seems to be a constant struggle as well. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It's key to everything. Without that, really, everything just becomes so much harder.
Yeah, predictability seems to be even more important necessarily than savings for a lot of folks.
Yeah, that's it for sure.
Looks like Mike's jumping off. Thanks for joining us, Mike. We'll talk to you soon. Great, Keith. Well, we got a couple more questions we'll save for you at the end there.
Yeah, great. Look forward to it.
More. Thank you for the story. Quick kind of rundown on, we realized we haven't done an Asia Pacific friendly time zone call in a little bit. Again, our apologies. We're going to try and get more of them going. One of the things we're talking about at the end, but we want to give you a few updates of kind of things that have been happening in the community over the last year. We talked about these three areas at the beginning: connections, growth, and best practices. We've heard from the survey we sent out that framework of best practices was one of the biggest areas. So we're going to start with that and some of the updates that have been building from the community in terms of the FinOps framework and roadmap and things there. So we have Andrew Nim from the team who's going to run through this.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Can you hear me all right?
Yep. Gotcha.
Cool. So first of all, we're incredibly grateful for all the contributions from our community. So quick round of applause. Thank you to everyone here, everyone all around the world. It's amazing. Here's a quick list of recent updates that we've integrated from the community's hard work back into our collection of standards, the FinOps framework. We've added a variety of things. This includes updates to completed projects like waste reduction. This includes user stories. And also, we've coupled newer playbooks and guides together with their respective capabilities. So you can check all of these out on our website, finops.org, and make sure you keep us accountable to our goal to reduce the friction in how practitioners find this guidance to advance their FinOps practices. So your feedback is always welcome. All right, next one. Here we have a quick working group update. I'm going to represent my amazing colleague, Sam, who I believe is not here. Here we have different phases and many different projects. It's a quick overview. Each working group, if you don't know, is composed of our community members, staff, and together we bring new perspectives on all of these FinOps topics and capabilities. We currently have six active working groups, 4 additional ones that are in like a stage where they're proposing what they might build and bring to the greater community. So going through the pipeline here, incubating ideas, we've got serverless efficiency, commitment strategy. These are forming, they're finding talented members, getting the right troops together. And our proposal pending status, we've got gamification, managing anomalies, cost allocation, strategic planning. And this phase, teams are forming, they've got firmed up ideas, they're getting ready to pitch those proposals to the TAC. In active sprints, we have automation, internships, open standard for cloud billing, sustainability, unit economics, and social aspects of FinOps. These are all amazing projects that are mid-sprint. Some of them have already delivered things for the greater community to consume on our website. And then, of course, if you have the time and the interest, check out our graduated projects. You can find those on FinOps.org on the left side nav under projects. Specifically incubating and proposal steps. These are great opportunities for people to join from the ground up and get involved. Next one. So on that note, the best way to do this is to go and check out the projects page. On FinOps.org, you can see all of the graduated projects, various ones that are in various stages. And if folks want to get involved, you can go visit our events page. You can find all of our working groups that are active, that have meetings and whatnot. And there's also a form to fill out if you're interested in joining one. All right, next slide, please. So if you didn't know this, I recently got to catch up with this stuff. The FinOps Foundation reviews and provides certifications for partner member platforms and solutions. This includes both commercially available and also open source projects that help empower FinOps capabilities for members and practitioners all over the world. So platform and solution certifications we offer include FinOps Certified Platform, FinOps Certified Solution, and FinOps Certified Service Provider. Did I get all those right? Yeah, appreciate it. Right on, cool. On that note, we're pleased to announce for the APAC region that Crane is now a FinOps certified solution. Yay. For those unaware, Crane is founded by a FinOps partner member, Tencent. So awesome. If you're all interested, you can check out more information on our website. And I believe that's it for Objective Group 3. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Joe.
Thank you, Andrew. I just want to highlight also for folks, these working groups are really the beating heart of how the best practices come out. So, the foundation really only tries to publish things that are like coming from the community. So would love to get all of your inputs, as he was saying. And the other thing that's really interesting to this certified solutions and platforms, tooling is like one part of the mix, right? And but we also found that in the last state of FinOps that people tend to have like 3.7 tools per company, a variety of things. And so we're doing a lot of work right now to sort of help people understand what tools do what. And again, we're not in the business of recommending what's good or what's bad, but we are trying to add clarity. And one of the things we're excited to see, because we're part of the Linux Foundation, is a set of these open source tools coming out. So looking to add more of these over time for sure, because the cultural portion is the hard part, I find. And then, folks tend to want to either build, buy, use open source as part of that. So definitely part of the mix. And I jumped in there. Sorry to interrupt, jumping over to Joe on more in the community.
All right. So this is the community group where all the connections happen. I was hired about a year ago, last December, to lead up the community program here at the FinOps Foundation. So next slide, I'll show you what we've got going on this last year. So this is just a hodgepodge of stuff. I'm not an artist. We just threw this on here. So that FinOps Ambassador badge, like I said, we launched that in Q1 of 2022 to make sure that we have ambassadors in every corner of the globe. I know the globe's round, but I'm saying corners, theoretically with quotation marks. So we're trying to make sure that we have, folks who can represent the foundation and the community near you, hopefully, or at least in a convenient time zone towards you. Those things in the middle those are our chapters. Those are our meetup groups. We started the year off on meetup.com, but we have been transitioning to a new meetup platform, events.finops.org. I recommend all of you go there, set up an account on that website if you haven't yet, and then explore our chapters. We have chapters in North America, EMEA, APAC, and virtual. I grabbed the APAC ones down below. We only have 3 set up so far. A lot of folks have been pinging me about Bengaluru on the side here. I'm so happy to say we're launching that in January. Keith Austin and Michelle Clellan will be launching Hong Kong FinOps here in 2023. And the Sydney group is active already. Go set up your account, click on there and join a chapter near you, and stay on the lookout because we add these every month. We add more chapters every month. We try to make sure these chapters have practitioner leadership. It doesn't mean every chapter is led by just practitioners, but we want to make sure that there's that end user viewpoint that is leading the group. Also, when you're on there, check out the virtual, because that's where a lot of our special interest groups and groups like Women in FinOps reside, and you can definitely join those to check those out. FinOps Pod is my little baby. It's our podcast. We've had 14 episodes so far. We got 2 more to close out the year. It's been a tremendous amount of fun. I believe I see Prabha in the participants list. If that's Prabha from Nestle, he was actually on FinOps Pod briefly in our voicemail episode. I tried making it easy. Oh, yeah, there you are. Yeah. So yeah, you left the voicemail. So he kicked off an episode. So it was really super fun. If you like podcasts and you haven't heard it yet, I would like it if you listen to it.
It is oddly good. I was even a guy who his whole career is about FinOps. I was like, I'm not gonna listen to this podcast. It's gonna be boring. And then now I'm in the car or walking and hiking, and I listen to podcasts and I laugh and I learn stuff. Some really good lessons in there. And the beauty of it, I think, too. I mean, Joe brings great, comedy and insight and humor to it, but he's also a guy who did this at a couple Fortune 100s here in the US, and so they get really deep into good conversations. I always learn a lot, and folks are telling things that often went bad too, not just things that went well, which is nice to hear. So yeah, it's really, really phenomenal group.
Yeah, that FinOps episode number 13 is when FinOps goes wrong. Absolutely. Is there another slide? I can't remember. Oh, and here's all the sessions. If any of you, Shungo, I know you're going to reInvent. If anyone else is going to reInvent, we have resources for you to make sure you get the most out of it. There's probably a link that if we'll get a link out in the chat to make sure that you're able to see what FinOps related sessions there are and what FinOps related events. We have our own reception that we were co-hosting with the Cloud Native Compute Foundation on Tuesday night. Anything else on here, JR, you think?
I think that's the big stuff. We're also going to do a recap of reInvent. That unfortunately, time zone is probably not as friendly for most of this group, but it will be recorded and shared via our YouTube channel. That's happening December 8th. There was a question in the chat. I just want to call it also. We're going to come back to, I think, at the end about how to set up your own meetup and things in your country. But I want to save this to the end so we can dig in a little more there, because there's some nuance with that. I want to make sure to cover. We also just announced yesterday our second annual conference. This is in the US, but we very intentionally placed it on the West Coast to make it a bit easier, hopefully, for folks in Asia Pacific to come over. It's further away for the Europeans. They're not very happy about that. But this is happening the 27th to 30th of June. This is 1,000 people, multi-day conference, all focused on FinOps. We did the last one this last June. Now we're already looking at 2023. Would love to get as many of you there as possible. Lots of opportunities to speak and network and meet folks. We had a couple folks at the last one. Deanna from Atlassian came over and spoke at the last one. We had, I think you might be the only speaker on the call right now from that. So definitely looking forward to seeing as that develops. It's been a long process and a lot of good content going to come out of it, a lot of good networking. And with that, last area we wanted to get into in terms of foundation updates was the training, education, and professional development with Stacy and team.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm really excited because I just started sneezing before this. So Let's see how quickly I can mute
Want me to
myself.
cut to commercial for a minute? We can
Cut to commercial, but no, we're good. We're good. So I'm really excited to talk about the things that we're doing. With the group that I run and work with, the team of people, we're really all about inspiring growth and helping you advance your career wherever you are. And that takes a lot of forms. And with the help of the community, we've come up with a couple of different ideas last year, or this year, I should say, not even last year, this year. And we're really proud of what we've done so far. So this year we did have a goal of giving away $100,000 US in training for scholarships. We ended up between May and September, we awarded $109,000 in scholarships to 164 people representing 31 different countries. A third of that was in APAC region. So that was 48 people representing 9 different countries in the APAC region. So good job, you. We will be opening this up again in 2023. We're dedicated to giving away $200,000 in scholarship money this next year for FinOps related training presented by the foundation. We've also started peer-to-peer mentor groups. This is something that was an ask and we came up with at FinOps X. We recently started this as a kind of a beta, throw it out there really quick. We had 50 people, over 50 people, do 6 different groups. The one thing that we didn't have is a ton of people in the APAC region be represented. We had quite a few from India. We had a group specific for India, but outside of India, there wasn't as many people that raised their hand. So what we are doing is we're going to start an additional peer-to-peer mentor group or groups, depending on the number of people that are interested in this. We're going to start that in January. So Suha will go ahead and drop a link in there for the peer-to-peer mentor group. If that is something you're interested in, there's some information in a form you can fill out. Just fill it out. I made up a date like mid-December. It's on the form. Fill it out by then, and I'll get you set up. Also, we are starting doing some looking into internships. This is one of the working groups that we're working on. There's a really great survey that if you have been a FinOps intern, if you've had FinOps interns, we'd love to hear about you. We're going to create a playbook. So if you are ever interested in running a FinOps related internship at your organization, we're going to help you out. So the more information we can get from you, the more we can give back to our whole community. So that's that. I want to call out one of the amazing things that Ashley has really been spearheading, and that's the Women in FinOps speaker series. She has gotten people to speak every month. Please go out to the events page, and I think that we have a link for that too. The events page to register for that. We do post all recordings on our YouTube. Sorry, I almost sneezed there. It almost got out of me. We do put all of the recordings on YouTube, so you can go out and look at this later. And I want to tell you why it's so important for women in FinOps. So right before this call started, Ashley was talking about how she has shifted from like personal mom mode, going to gymnastics, singing Wheels on the Bus at gymnastics, and then she hops onto this call. So anything that we can do to help support women, people identifying women, or any allies, we always are wanting to do, because as all of you know, that regardless of where you are, there's a lot to juggle. And I think there's any way we can support that. And now I will be singing Wheels on the Bus for the rest of the night. So thank you, Ashley, for that. I also get a point for working that into the presentation. Finally, the last thing, I'm actually really excited to do this. We have a training called FinOps for Containers. It is in pre-sale because we anticipated to launch this next Tuesday. However, our amazing instructional designer this afternoon, Natalie Bergman, messaged me. She says, hey, guess what, Stace? It's done. We launched it. So I was all planning to tell all of you about this great new training that you can take advantage of, get a 20% off discount. But instead, I'm letting this group know first that it is now live, it's launched. If you're interested in FinOps containers, I'm going to extend that pre-sale price, that discount, until next Wednesday. So if you go log in now and type in containers, you'll still get 20% off. Just because we got it done faster doesn't mean you shouldn't still take advantage of that pre-sale. So lots of things going. And I want to call out, Corey asked how many certified practitioners there are in APAC. I'm just going to tell y'all, you're a little behind. We have over 3,000 total, only 157 in APAC region. So little catching up to do. Feel free to reach out at training@finops.org if you have any questions on training, and I can help you out.
Like I want to hand you a glass of water. Sorry, Stacey.
I know. I don't know what happened. So it's you guys. It's 10 o'clock for me. That's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the foundation is supported by training, which Stacey was just talking about, and then also a lot of really good vendors in the space who support in a non-promotional, bitchy way, which is the way we push folks on, to support the community with best practices, with bringing the working groups. So thank you to all of those who make the work and the community possible as part of this. The last thing that we have, and I want to make sure we leave lots of time at the end for conversation and questions, we wanted to share, we've heard about some of these events already, so I won't dwell too much here. I did want to highlight our friends at CloudKeeper, who I think Rahul, are you still on the line? Who's based in India. I tried to call you out earlier and you weren't there, but maybe you'll come back. They've got some events coming up, webinar on AWS hacks. They're also doing some things with them at reInvent if you happen to be out there. And of course, I mentioned we've got that vendor showcase coming up and the reInvent recap, and as well as a training for FinOps Certified Practitioner that does fall nicely into most of your time zones if you want to get certified. That's where as well. Cool. So with that, Suha, did we get many folks who filled this out on the way? Is this updated? Is this the right version?
Yes, that is the right version. Yes.
Awesome. So we just wanted to show kind of the results here as they came in from some results you're saying, and what you were looking kind of from us. And we take this feedback really seriously in affecting our roadmaps. This mix of folks on the right very much is typical of what we see in the foundation, right? It tends to be a lot of folks doing the practice itself with FinOps, a subset of consultants, some set of tooling service vendors. So we kind of touched on a lot of these areas. One of the things that we are really wanting your feedback on, and I think we're getting some of that on this call, is how best to engage in your individual regions and countries. We'd love to hear kind of how, and we talk about this in the AMA or the Ask Me Anything at the end. How often you'd like to see these types of calls, and what kind of content you want to see on them. Right? Andrew talked a lot about the open source resources there. We've got a lot of war stories to share right through FinOps Pod stories and ambassadors and practitioners there. So yeah, definitely looking to kind of see how we can do more. And with that, I think we're going to open it up for conversations and questions because there's been a bunch of them. From the group. And yeah, Stacey, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I've got my voice back a little bit more now. We've been capturing all the questions that have come in. And then we have some questions also that we want to ask all of you too. But I think it'd be really great to maybe let's just start if Sara and Keith, if you want to unmute yourself. I have a couple of questions for you that came in from the audience while you were talking. I want to give you a chance to answer those now. So Sara, one of the questions came in from Corey, and Corey wanted to know, how have you approached bringing the business owners or product owners on the journey of understanding the costs of the products they are running in the cloud?
Cool. That's actually a very good question. So it's good to acknowledge that we have different level of knowledge when it comes to cost. So there are people that on top of everything, they know that there's something called cloud cost, they're on top of their service cost, etc. Some people have no idea. And I think the second group is the most challenging one. When it comes to bring people up to speed, like I said, it's the rituals, the weekly rituals that we have. So we have World, which is for the head of departments, the engineering managers. We also have TechOps, which is the operational report that is run on demand by the services. So we introduce costs as this. And for me, it's all about the visibility. You have to find rituals for that people are already running part of their service or product, and you have to include cost visibility as part of these. This was like a game changer. Once we start to put cost in front of them, once we start to have these individual conversations about cost education and cost awareness. So some people had no idea, but they were keen to know. Some people didn't care. Some people were on top of everything. But it's just to get people to actually know that there's something called cost, put it in front of them, found their rituals, what they do, what they look at, and just put the costs in there. And also make sure you have the right data and the right tools to support you in the visibility journey with the product owners and engineers. That would be the key thing. Hope this answers the question, Corey.
That's great. And Keith, kind of going on that, both of you have gotten some questions that are similar to this. So I'm going to ask this of Keith, and I think Sara too, if you want to add anything to this as well. But one of the other questions that came in is like, what Keith, specifically for you, can you share any challenges you face in cost optimization across clouds? They also ask for any tools that help. I don't, you can speak as little or as much as that if you want, but I think the bigger question right now is like, what are some of the challenges that you faced in cost optimization across clouds?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think, as I alluded to before, I don't think we're different to any other large organization out there. Maybe it's just the scale maybe is different, yeah, and just starting on the journey is very hard, right? And I appreciate, there's lots of questions, and as we saw in the survey results, how do you get started, right? I think is really the key challenge. So for us, we found what really worked is from the start of FinOps, we collaborated with IT finance. So we didn't do this as a individual initiative out of the CCOE, just from a technical or engineering standpoint. We did it in collaboration with the finance teams. So while we're having conversations with engineers or application owners, et cetera, finance were always there. Okay, so finance were always there saying, okay, cool, we've got this potential budget pressure, we've got this potential, overspend area, et cetera. That's potentially going to affect your other programs of work or whatever the case may be. So it was to give that engineering or that technical standpoint and also the commercial view as well. And I think having both streams running at the same time or being collaborative in those two streams really helped us, right? I think if we were to do this from a pure technical angle, with the application owners or with infrastructure teams, etc. To be honest, I don't think it would have been as effective. I think we would have got definitely a lot less traction because the incentive just would not have been there, right? So I think you need to make sure that you're bringing the right people. As Sara alluded to, data is key, right? Making sure you're showing people, what is going on in their environment, because a lot of the times people have no idea. But that showing both sides, the technical and the commercial side, was key to our success so far.
Yeah, that's great. Sara, do you have anything to add on to? I feel like we got a couple of questions that came in there, and I feel like, Sara, you did a really good job also already kind of addressing that even in your last answer of like how are you bringing the different owners onto it and some of the challenges you're facing. But did you have any kind of similar like, these are some additional challenges that you might be facing, or any feedback when it comes to, I think not even just cost optimization, but anything like usage and rate optimization even?
Yep, I would probably add to what Keith said. For us, it's the biggest challenge is just to get people consent or get them to action things. Sometimes it's very hard to ping an engineer or something, I need your consent on buying this RI, or can you please review this waste? And they have like a list of other priorities they have to action. So just to push, keep pushing on the cost, keep delivering the message of that cost is a priority. Cost is an important operational metric. It's one of the pillars for operational excellence anyways, which people often tend to forget. But cost is important, and just push for the cost efficiency in your company, in your organization. Keep talking about cost, keep educating people of cost and the opportunities and the values their organization can get from focusing on cost optimizations. It's not about cutting cost. It's not about saving money, just about optimizing and getting more for what you pay. And this can reflect actually one of the key messages that we try to deliver to the engineers, that this can reflect positively on your team hires. If you can save more money, you'll have more budget to get more headcounts and you can get more work done. So it's always focused on the message of what cost optimization can lead to.
And Sara, go ahead.
I've heard some stories from Mike over the years of kind of like how the journey has progressed at Atlassian, and you mentioned, the enabling, empowering the engineers. One of the things I know he shared, I'm curious your take on this, is just about how important the executive support for that was. And I know, you all have a fairly new CTO, and your co-CEOs have talked about the importance of optimizing, cloud. How has that message been propagated internally, top down, and to have an impact on engineering? Was that a key factor in your mind?
It is, and it's actually right now, these days, I think cost is a very hot topic for anyone in the tech industry right now. So it's actually, the message is getting stronger. Everyone is being more aware. We're just talking as a team that just the last 1 or 2 months, we're getting more questions, we're getting more heat from the whole company. People are started to be more cost conscious, as of course, due to the economic conditions, everything. So people start to I would probably say pay more attention to the cost and the importance of maintaining cost. Like you said, in our organization, we have a new CTO, and he's very keen of optimizing the cloud calls, deliver the message, but it's very also important to have executives that are supportive of the message. It's very hard to get your message across every single team member, the heads of everything. People have different priorities. Development teams have the priority of developing new products rather than focusing on cost. And especially in Atlassian, for a very long time, we had the clear message of innovate and don't care about the cost. And we slightly tried changing the message to still innovate, but be more cost conscious, be more efficient in managing your services cost. So yeah, I think also the support of the executives and the management to this tweaking in the message was very crucial for us. And we're starting to see I was just joking with the team that we started to finally get the attention that we've been seeking for a very long time, the last 2 months, which is great.
And Sara, kind of going off right before that, what you were saying, we were talking about your team, and I've already lost the train of thought a little bit, but one of the questions we have, and I think it aligned with that really well, is how did you tackle the stakeholder budget approvals? So example, you hired people, but did you have to first show potential savings, or was it attached to something else? That's something that Manav wanted to know.
Yep. So for us, the budget is actually managed by the finance team. We don't manage the budget ourselves. It's set and managed by the finance team, including the cloud budget. But what we do is the core FinOps, which is liaising between the finance and the engineers and different products team. Finance and engineering don't speak the same language. So it's our message and our role to deliver. This is what you can achieve saving this. And also it's about kind of driving the value. If you look at how much waste you've got and how kind of translate how much of this waste can translate into number of headcounts you can get, optimizing costs, etc. We let them have the conversation with the FP&A around their budgets if they have any if they have any headcounts or new requests, but we kind of try to translate the message into if you save this waste, if you optimize your cost, this is how much value you're going to get in return. Some people do it, I think it was an example mentioned in the book. Some people do it in like the products, for example, if you eliminate this waste, you can get, 100 scans of Coke or something like this. But for us, we just kind of try to sell it with the terms of headcount. That's it. That's our trick.
Great.
For sure, it was beer, not Coke, in there. But yeah, but yeah, Olivia. I mean, making the dollars, the whatever it is, real, because that's one of the challenges, right? Is the numbers get so big, and it's like, well, is this the important amount, or is this? Yes, I love the headcount approach.
Mm-hmm. And Keith, one of the questions that you got, I think it was the very first question that you had pop up for you in the chat, is something that we hear all the time too in the foundation. But what KPIs are you looking to introduce? That is the question of KPIs come up on a regular basis.
Yes, and it was a very long discussion internally around FinOps KPIs as well. So yeah, I think we're still in a little bit of state of flux with that. We haven't 100% decided what our KPIs are going to be. We have started to measure FinOps though. So measuring to what you might ask, right? If there's no defined KPIs. We had a set of kind of objectives when we first launched FinOps, and that formed part of the business case. And yes, there was a cost driver as part of the business case, of course, right? You can't get any corporate business case over the line without showing potential cost savings or at least efficiency gains, etc. But it was other things, right? It was tagging hygiene, basically rate of untagged or unknown costs, etc. Anomaly detection, and certain other things. So we didn't look at purely cost drivers. We looked at other things. Alignment to contracted rates, etc. So that then led into a potential cost saving. But our contracts, and then I won't go into detail, but our contracts are things that are signed with our service providers, our cloud partners, are very much aligning to certain SKU usage. So we make sure that we're enabling the business to align to that SKU usage, and we also realign that SKU usage every year. And really, that's where we're seeing probably the biggest gains in the data that's being driven through FinOps, is being able to realign to those top SKU lists more efficiently, and understand the usage more effectively. So that's I suppose the biggest thing for us at this point.
Yeah, that makes sense. And something you said in there too, which is I really think that you guys are just teeing up these questions perfectly, just feeding the next question for the next person. It might be you've read the questions already. But,
Possibly.
possibly. They did come in publicly on the chat, so it wasn't hidden. So Sara, one of the questions that came in for you, but I think Keith, you just talked about this as one of the things that you measure, one of the goals that you have, and that is specifically around tagging hygiene. Like, how do you ensure the tagging hygiene? Is it free text? What is your kind of strategy around that? How do you make sure that it's good?
Yeah, no, for sure. So all of our new so we took it as a two-phased approach. We said, okay, let's draw a line in the sand, right? Because we know what's in the current environment is a bit messy, right? But how do we stop the bleeding? Okay, so how do we fix it from now so that everything going forward we don't have to go and fix later? And we implemented service catalogs for provisioning. So we basically pulled contributor rights from the environment and said you have to go through the catalogs now to provision things, and therefore we're able to then lock down the tagging from the start, right, from the provisioning effort. Doesn't mean that things can't change later on, but we're using things like Azure policies and whatever to govern the environment later on. But from that point of provisioning, we knew that the cost center tags, the budget owner tags, server owner, business owner, APM tags, and all that kind of stuff were set correctly from the start. APM tags, application portfolio management, for us was a big one, because then that ties back to all of the other behind the scenes services as well, not just the infrastructure usage. So getting those tags right were absolutely key for us, and that's where we really did it. We said, okay, let's force everyone through the service catalogs. We had other manual provisioning issues and that kind of stuff, which was also solved by the service catalogs. But then we went back and said, okay, how do we fix the rest of the environment? And we started with a very blanket approach, just to try and get some momentum, right? So we basically looked at a resource group down. This is very, very Azure kind of focused at this point in time, but we looked at resource groups, and we looked at, okay, resource groups are very well defined by project in AIA. So we were able to tag the resource groups and then basically inherit the tags down. Once we got approvals, etc., from the cost center owners and whatever else. But we basically enforced ownership of the tags through the resource groups, and that really got us to that. About the 70, our partner who helps us drive our FinOps tool is on the line today, and they can keep me honest here. But really driving towards, we're about 70%, I think, at the moment, from a tagging hygiene point of view of cost center owner, which compared to where we were 12 months ago is a fantastic effort, right? So and it's getting better every day.
Wow.
And when you're saying tagging, do you specifically mean resource level tags? Or are you also including like resource groups, subscriptions, linked? Like what is how much of your I'm asking how much of your strategy is pure tags versus resource grouping, subscriptions, linked accounts, and how do you split those out?
Yeah, no, a good question, right? So it's definitely at a resource level. So resource groups and individual resources as well. And that's when I alluded to before, the shared cost thing is a problem, right? But it's obviously tagging, gets a little bit complex, right? With shared services and tagging. But we're definitely got a resource level. Each business unit for us runs its own subscription. So from that point of view, we have direct billing already to business units, etc. But then at a group level, right, we have shared subscriptions for shared applications and things like that, for which we could have applications being used by 2, 3, 4, 5, 18 business units potentially, so that those shared costs need to be allocated correctly, and that's really where the challenge is. And for the business units as well, they could have different applications or shared services within the regions as well, which is tricky.
Awesome. I have a couple more questions for both Keith and Sara as well, as someone that we want to ask the audience. But I think I'm going to wrap up the questions that I have for Keith and Sara right now. And Sara will be tagging you again for some questions for the ambassador stuff too. But let me see. Keith, let's do this one. This was the most recent one. Are you using native cost management tooling such as AWS CAD, Cost Explorer, etc., third-party tooling, or did you build your own to manage and report on cloud spend?
All of the above, I think, is the tick box, right? So I think like a lot of organizations out there, we started with the awful billing files that we get from our cloud providers. You're running massively large spreadsheets that are very difficult to use, and trying to pull the tagging information out and allocate them to different cost center owners, etc. That's where we started, right? And I think that's where most organizations start. Some business units took it upon themselves to start dissecting that data in things like Power BI and things like that. So that's really probably where the journey started for some of the individual business units. At group level, we kind of saw that as really a good starting point and a good entry point to understand the cloud cost, but really wasn't sustainable moving forward. And we needed to go to market, and we did an RFP this year and selected a FinOps partner, a FinOps tool, because we really thought that building something ourselves, or further investing in Power BI or some other data visualization tool was only really going to tell half the story. We saw some issues from the recommendations being provided by the cloud partners, etc., that weren't really aligned to our business. So that was difficult. And then again, that enrichment of data that the FinOps tool providers can come to the table with, I think really helps us tell the story on both the technical side and the financial side. I think that's really where, if you're using something like Power BI or trying to build something yourself, really you're not getting the complete picture. And that's what we decided at AIA, and we went to market and purchased a tool.
Very cool. So Sara and Joe, I'm going to have you kind of tag team this one, because it's two questions I'm going to combine into one thought. So one of the questions that we had come in, Joe specifically, was how can I set up FinOps? And I'm assuming we're talking about one of the meetups or becoming an ambassador or something like that within my country. And then also the other question that we want to ask Sara is what is the best way to get involved within the FinOps community within your region? So maybe Joe, if you can kind of take part one of that, and then Sara, if you can talk about your own experience, and because obviously you took the initiative to do some stuff to get involved outside of your own work community. So Joe?
Yeah, great question. When you were asking that, I was like, you mean like FinOps, like adoption, or a FinOps meetup? I don't know which one. I think a FinOps meetup is easier than getting FinOps adoption across the entire country. So we've spent this last year really maturing how to scale out our meetups. It's been a journey. There's some no-brainers, like when Sara was like, hey, I want to do Sydney, yeah, that there is a community there already. It's really easy. We just plop you there, and then you're off and running. I've also had the experience with someone's like, I want to start a meetup, and I'm like, great. And then I look up, I'm like, there's no one around you for 500 miles. So there's there's no one to meet with yet. So what we're trying to do to make this easier going forward is one of the things we're trying to do to help meetup organizers be successful going forward is we were going to set up a little training, and there'll be a meetup organizer badge, just like you see that ambassador badge and a practitioner badge on that screen right now. And that means that you'll know how to use the Bevy system, which is our platform that we are running on meetups.com on. You'll understand our code of conduct, our no sales pitches, our antitrust and what that means. We'll have a diversity, equity, and inclusion awareness training, so that you can really have a good eye view of your entire community and how to be as inclusive as possible. So that, be on the lookout for that in Q1 of 2023 to get that out there. And then also, if you don't want to wait on me, you could be like the South Africans and just start meeting up, and then say, Joe, catch up to us. We're already meeting up. They're an amazing group. All of us, they reached out, said, hey, we got 20 people. We meet once a month. And I was like, you guys are awesome. So that's easy. But if you're for a lot of us starting from scratch, be on the lookout more. Definitely want to grow. I want that APAC section of events.finops.org to look more like the North America section this time next year. So
thanks, Joe. And Sara, kind of what's your experience? What recommendations would you give to people that just to get involved with the FinOps community in your region?
Cool. First of all, I would probably ask them to go into Bevy and just try to see if there is any running meetups in their community. It's always a good idea to engage in an existing community. So when I think, Joe, there was no Sydney FinOps meetup or any meetups in the region, but the one that we're running now in Sydney, we allow other participants to also speak. So it's literally a community. You had Prabha talking before. We had Ray talking as well, and we had Mike sharing one of his presentations, and we do it on quarterly basis. So start engaging with your existing meetup community if there is any in your region, and you'll know this from Bevy. If there isn't any, you can, like I said, you can ping Joe and start your own. He's going to give you some guidance around how to start, what's the templates to use, some tips from the other meetups organizer. And I think with all the programs running with the meetup organizer badge and everything, things will get more organized. We actually just had a call couple of days ago for the meetup organizers, which is good. Like we have our own small community of meetup organizers where we support and get more tips and recommendations. So I think just like engage with your existing community if there's any. Start to ask questions. Meetups, it's all about community. So it's start engage with the community, start asking questions, start to be present. And if there isn't any communities, feel free to start your own. It's not hard at all to start the community. Once there is like enough people, like Joe said, it's not like one person in 500 miles, but just reach out to Joe. I actually thought of starting FinOps in Egypt when I was there for a vacation, but I don't think there is enough audience for FinOps. Egypt is not very advanced in cloud yet, but I'm sure there will be appetite. And once this, I'll start the FinOps in Cairo. Watch me from Pyramids background very, very soon. But yeah, it's start your own FinOps. Just make sure the community is ready. There is appetite. There is at least a few people in your region that is interested in the topic, and reach out to Joe for help.
Sara, I'll be anxiously awaiting to see the Egypt one. But I think you said something that was really important too. Get on events.finops.org and see what other ones are going on, whether it's in your time zone, your region, or whatever. Because we still have so many that are virtual, you don't necessarily need to wait for that one to just blow up in your area. You can start connecting with folks now. So don't wait. Plus, it gives you like that inspiration and what can you expect with the meetup. And then you can become Sara and just start them globally whenever you vacation somewhere, whenever you decide to take a little bit of road trip. You start
all my vacations are on FinOps meetups. Come on.
I mean, I do.
The other thing to throw out there, though, is also we've been talking a lot about meetups, but a lot of folks are just kind of connecting in Slack as well and having chats there. We've got some language-based ones. There's I know there's like a Portuguese one that spans South America and Europe. There's a Russian language one that has people all over the world in it, right? So there, if you just want to like kind of get we call them a special interest group together that don't necessarily have to go through the process of scheduling meetings and all that as well. So
Yep. I actually had a story to share. I had someone from San Fran joining my meetup once in Sydney, and I was very glad. But I was like, there's also San Fran meetup, and I put her in touch with the meetup group, and she was very happy to find the local one, which is good. But she also joined Sydney one just because, and I told her she's always more than welcome to join us. It was more time friendly for her in San Fran and Sydney. But yeah, like Stacy and JR said, you can also join another meetup if there is no one in your region. You can join other meetups and see share experiences and knowledge and best practices.
Yeah. And if you just really want to connect with people, I'll give everybody Joe's personal cell phone number. Feel free to call him night or day. I just do that every now and then to make sure Joe is paying attention. Guess what, folks? He is.
I'm always paying attention.
Yeah, I know you are. I give you a bad time. But we do have some questions. Oh, go ahead. Sorry,
I was just going to call out a couple folks. I mean, we got some folks on here who have been involved for a long time. Leon Zhang, I know you were one of the original folks way back when you were at National Australia Bank and back 2019. So cool to see you back here. And then I know we got Luca Pasquale, who's been really active in Slack. And yeah, thank you for your involvement. So love to hear from any of you. And I don't know, Stacey, if you want to have more questions, or we're going to open up to the crowd, or what's?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to do, is just open it up for the crowd. If you do want to just type in questions, thoughts into chat, if you want to take yourself off of mute and ask a question. One question we want to know to ask all of you.
We got Tim Prentice too. Sorry, I'm just seeing all the names on here.
No, they just keep popping up, right?
Yeah.
One of the things we were wondering is, specifically even regionally for all of you, like, what are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing in your FinOps journey? And more specifically, how can we as a community, how can we with the FinOps Foundation help? How can this community help you with resolving that? So if you want to answer that question, feel free to take yourself off mute, type it into the chat. If you don't want to talk about that, you could ask something else, but this is your time. Like JR said, it's not a webinar.
Alternatively, we're just going to start calling on people.
Yeah, I mean, I will.
Hi, this is Soumya, just coming out of mute. I hope you guys can see me. Hello, everyone. So one of the things that I feel as a FinOps community, the challenges that we face is, and what Sara also described rightfully, is developers taking action and how we can influence the developer and engineering community to be more cognizant of the FinOps journey within their organization. And I know all of us have faced some or the other challenge in that perspective. So would like to hear thoughts on how we can improve on that. What are the steps that we can take? And with the new book that is coming out, are we going to have more use cases and also focus more on that persona?
JR?
If anybody want to share thoughts, I mean, one of the things that really stood out, I think, in updates to the book after looking at it 3 years was just how much there was an us versus them kind of conversation in the community a few years ago with engineering, and what we've seen, as I mentioned a little bit at the beginning, is an integration. I think a lot more of not just integration of engineering, but increasingly engineering is leading FinOps, right, in a lot of organizations. And we saw in the last State of FinOps that the majority of new FinOps practices now are coming out of a CTO or CIO's sort of office. After that first survey highlighted that, there was a group, one of the first open source projects we had, that was a breakdown of how to get or enable or empower engineering involvement in these areas. They put out a really good working group. We can share. I can't some screen sharing, but we can post in this if somebody can grab that link to the enabling engineers action. But I mean, ultimately, we ended up spending a lot of time in the new book around talking about that aspect of how to best to partner with engineers. Mike Fuller has got this great tagline. He talks about putting FinOps data in the path of engineering, making FinOps not something that is off to the side, making cost a first-class citizen, ensuring that cost and spend is part of engineering reviews as a metric alongside other other metrics, performance metrics. Engineers love efficiency, and cost could be seen as another thing that can be made more efficient. There was a fantastic talk, we actually quote a lot in the book too, by the folks from Apple at FinOps X, a guy named Gabe there, who he talked about the idea that engineers need to work inside of constraints in order to innovate. And that's what, you scope things down. And cost is another amazing constraint to put out there as a way to say, hey, look, you need to accomplish this set of outcomes with your code. This is the cost constraints in which to do it, and leaving them the room to go flex muscle to design more efficient infrastructure, architecture, to look at new services. And then there's really interesting ways to come out of that. So I think the idea is that, it's not that engineers are not wanting to take cost seriously or action. It's that it needs to be reframed as part of the job, and importantly also it's got to be something that is talked about from the beginning of the software development process, that it's in sprint planning, it's in architecture reviews, it's not tacked on later. So yeah, I think there's a lot of development in that space, and I see a few hands up if anybody wants to give their thoughts.
Yeah, I've been tracking. So Ashley, if you want to, I know you want to talk specifically about this, and then Catherine and Tim, I'll have you in that order after Ashley.
Yeah, I'll just kind of quickly. So some things I've been seeing with the enterprises I've been working with really trying to enable education. JP Morgan is one that is doing massive amount of like certification of FinOps for all of their engineers, not just like the people like doing the FinOps practitioner work, not just the finance, but really making that part of every engineer's like annual long learning process. So I think that's really interesting. There's been a lot put out there about unit economics this last year. There's a really amazing playbook. And I think that's another really good opportunity to like, you know, really dig in and say like, what is the cost to serve, and having engineers have a say in what is that key metric that you're going to measure. And there's always a sustainability element as well. Like, you know, we do want to be reducing our carbon footprint, and people like bringing that type of data to engineer. And, you know, maybe it's not moving the needle with the dollar, but, you know, it's around saving the environment. Right. And so I think every time you're engaging and having conversations with engineer, you need to figure out what motivates them. And that's the data that you need to bring in front of them, whether it's cost, whether it's a KPI, whether it's unit economics, whether it's carbon data. Right. And so I think I guess that's what I've been seeing that's really working, is like coming to them and approaching them.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Ashley and Jill.
Yeah. And before I move on to Catherine, I am seeing some people like saying they have to leave. I want to let you know we're not going to hold you captive here. If you do need to drop, it's okay. This is being recorded. We'll post this later. But we are going to stay on too to keep answering questions. So Catherine, what did you have?
Yeah, so I would like to know, practitioners, how do we, so we know tagging, the tagging challenges in the traditional IS workloads already, but taking that above and layer, which is in PaaS, I'm kind of struggling to find out how do we actually do allocations in something like Azure App Services Plan or something that's not traditional IS.
All right, that's outside of my wheelhouse. I'm looking at everybody else on here. I know my limits.
And sorry, I have to admit, I was reading a note when you were asking, but I think to summarize the question, you're looking at FinOps outside of infrastructure, outside of AWS and public cloud and those types of things. So are you thinking about SaaS and platforms and more traditional?
No, a PaaS. So platform as a service, anything that's like, it's a little bit, it's another layer of abstraction above IS, right? So it's not just compute and storage. It is a managed service, but the managed service is still leveraging computing resources.
Yeah. I see Sara took herself off of mute too, so.
Yes, I'm happy to answer, but hopefully my answer would be helpful to you as well. So in Atlassian, we do have our own, I'll probably say tool, our internal tool to deploy the microservices. And there's something there called service descriptor where we put all the tags. So I think the first step is establish a tagging standard within your company. So in Atlassian, we have tagging standards. We have 4 mandatory tags that need to be there. It's like depends, of course, on how you structure, what's the organization structure and stuff, but it could be your service, it could be your team, it could be the name, etc. So it's more of try to, first of all, have a tagging standard and also put these in the service descriptor you're trying to provision. So it's like everyone knows this is the 4 tags that you need to have. Regarding the free text, because I've seen a lot of questions on the call on the free text. Yes, free text is always a pain, true. But also with the tagging standard, people will start to ask questions around their teams. What's the value that I should put there? And they start gradually put it up. Also, we have a process which is managed by the finance team in our end that they see all the weird, funky values that people put. One time I saw a guy putting blah, blah, blah in a tag, whatever. So they do actually have a mapping table that we run as part of our extraction for the pipeline. And we do map these to proper departments. So they kind of see what's the resource like, what is it, and they put it in the proper department. So this could be another way of managing the free text. So if you have someone spelling or doing some typos, for example, the team is called FinOps, they put it fin dots. So this like they have a kind of a catch-all mapping mechanism that we run as part of our extraction, and they map this to the right tag or the right value of the tag. It's like unified across. So all these can be like it can be tricky, but I think just first start with setting a tagging standard in your company. It's like mandatory tags that have to be there. Sometimes you have to force it, sometimes you cannot force it. So I think I discussed before with our cloud engineering team the possibility of like enforcing tags is like, if it's not there, terminate the resource, but they will like take it easy. We cannot do that to that extent. But feel free to like search a way to enforce tags, put tagging standards, make sure you have some service descriptors there. And I can see people also putting some tagging guidelines as well from the FinOps Foundation website. And also feel free to kind of do another part in your process where you handle the bad tagging and how you can map them to proper like whatever service or department you're trying to allocate cost to.
And I think that
this answers your question.
Platforms are really interesting, right? Because yeah, the basics are compute and storage, but increasingly like containers, we see that abstraction layer where you've got to split out those costs, and there's a whole separate set of strategies there, right? And namespaces, and how do you allocate the unportioned portions of the container usage, and what is essentially unallocated or wasteful there, which ultimately gets to tagging is that first step, but like looking at the outputs from the platforms, getting into unit economic metrics, we're saying, this platform is taking this action, delivering this unit of value, and then splitting that out. Keith talked about shared costs, right? And how hard that is. Shared costs are not just, a single resource that's being shared, but a platform or a container, cluster, those things as well. So I think there's a lot of layers that you need to unpack there. And we're seeing that all part of the mix, right? And people are starting to do infrastructure plus containers plus their SaaS licensing in the FinOps realm. The challenge is always, yes, all the hygiene, but also getting the right data out, and not all platforms yet have that. And containers put out, Kubernetes put out most of what you need, but requires definitely a lot of strategy to get there.
Mm-hmm. Catherine, did that help?
A little bit, but I think the challenge is not with putting tags in, is how do you surface the tags out?
Yeah.
So you can tag the resources, but because they're another layer of abstraction above IS, it's not a SaaS provider where you can kind of get the SaaS provider to provide some usage analytics. So it's that in between layer where we're kind of finding it a bit challenging. It's different to containers because you can use container tools to surface the container data, right? The namespace and the labels, if there is something there. But with these PaaS services, it's we actually have reached out to Cloudability, and we really haven't had an answer there early on. So,
which PaaS services are you looking at? Are they using things in AWS or Google, those areas, or?
No, Azure App Services Plan.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely check in the community to see what folks are doing there. Because I think you're right, it's an area that is not probably well solved or served yet.
Yeah, Ashley, did you have something you needed to add to that before we move on to Tim?
No, I was just saying that I love the idea. It's a great conversation. I'd love to have you throw it out and ask a question Slack channel if you're in Slack, and then it's a great idea to start a working group around too. I'm thinking of another few services in AWS, and it's always, I always say that give a mouse a cookie, right? Like you figure out one layer of chargeback, and then they want the next granularity. And so I'd say let's get a couple people together and brainstorm on it.
Awesome. All right. Hey, Tim, good to see you on here. What would you like to say today?
Hey, team. I mostly just want to take advantage of the environment to say that if anyone is looking to start a New Zealand meetup, either in Auckland or Wellington, I'm currently in a consulting role, so I'd much rather see it come from an end practitioner. But if you want someone to get behind you and provide resources, rooms, expertise, speakers, whatever, please reach out. We'd really love to get behind it. And as I say, we'd really like to see it coming from the practitioner community rather than from us in the consulting space. So that would be really cool. And the other thing that I would also like to suggest is regional conferences would be lovely. Something in Sydney or...
Totally. And hey, Tim, great to see you. You were at Air NZ, right? Previously? Yeah. Okay. So I hope you could reach out maybe to some of your former colleagues there to get them going. But we're definitely looking at the regional side of things. I mean, part of we've been looking to see, obviously y'all know how COVID has been, and those, we're looking to watch AWS restart their summits, in Australia and Singapore and all those places. And I think we're probably going to look to follow some of those first. But yeah, we'd love to, it's definitely on our radar. And we as a foundation kind of grew up during COVID. So we're also switching that motion now to start doing in person, right? So we're starting in our top regions, but yeah, definitely keep pushing us on that. Sorry, Tim, I've sat down with you some point 5 years ago in person. Where were we?
We were at the AWS Summit in Sydney, I think.
It was in Sydney. Okay, yeah, I remember sitting outside in the sun with you. That's right. Yeah, great to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Tim, if you want someone to talk to on the practitioner side in New Zealand, then feel free to ping me on Slack or LinkedIn or whatever, and I can put you in touch with our folks in the business unit down there. I'm sure they'll be more than interested to meet up with you.
Awesome. Sounds fantastic. Thanks, Keith.
And if you don't need a FinOps Foundation person to join you, but you just want me to come visit because I want to go down there, I'm happy to figure out how many trainings I need to sell to make that happen. So thank you.
She was not planning vacations and holidays around FinOps meetups.
I wasn't joking. I'll figure out how to do that. No, okay. All right, so folks, we are getting close to the top of the hour. I want to be mindful of everybody's time. Still, we are happy to stay on for a little bit longer and answer any questions that you have, any suggestions that you might have that you take advantage of having the FinOps Foundation staff on here, along with some just amazing practitioners and partners that we have on this call. We all, just so you know, kind of side channel talking, just thrilled at how engaged everyone is here. It just makes us really excited to do some more stuff in your region with you. So thank you for that. Before we go on, just thank you for being so awesome and so polite. Everybody's raising their hand. I love that.
Shout out also, I want to thank Suha, who put together all the prep and planning for this and guided us through it. And you've been posting all the things in the background. Thank you for all the support through this.
And so fast, whenever someone says something, she's like, I have a link for that. I have a link for that. So thank you, Suha.
You're welcome. And quick reminder to take the State of FinOps survey. The link's available.
This is for you as much as for us. We want to give you good data back. Lance.
Andrew, you have not Andrew, our Andrew, but a new other Andrew.
Other Andrew's been sitting here silently. Gartner talks about augmented FinOps, basically using data to
What is that? I've seen that on there. I'm like, what the heck is augmented? Sorry.
That's my question, because I'm assuming it means you're building into your design a continuous, like a no-ops type capability, using data to sort of continuously program. I'm assuming that, but my question is, what's the FinOps org's position on what augmented?
I was hoping you had an answer for us. So I have not heard augmented FinOps from anybody in our community. I've seen it on the Gartner thing.
Yep. It's on the hype cycle.
My perception is the hype cycle. Yeah, it's funny they don't talk about FinOps, so they have augmented FinOps. My perception of that, right, is that I'm guessing it's, like you said, data driven and automated and all those things. And there's a lot of vendors doing FinOps automation. And automation can be like just managing the reporting. It can be all the way to turning things on and off. That range. But I guess the one thing I push back a little bit, and I push back against some of our own community vendor members as well, is that FinOps is inherently like a cultural practice. It's not a technology, it's a discipline. It's like getting finance and engineering to work together, and engineering to think about cost, and procurement to change their ways, and executives to get in there. So while tooling and automation and what I imagine augmented FinOps, and I would love for someone to clarify at some point what that is important. Like it's a classic three-legged stool, right? It's one piece of the puzzle. So I think we as a foundation spend a lot of time talking to analysts and Gartner and Forrester and all those folks to help them understand what we see in the community. But yeah, I'm curious to see where that goes as well. Is anybody doing augmented FinOps? Can anybody answer that one?
We've had a lot of conversations.
Same as you. What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have
like AI. It's meta, and actually, you're big on the metaverse, right? Sorry.
No, I think it's interesting. There's definitely like elements, like there's 18 capabilities, right? So there's definitely certain capabilities that like, could you use more, augmented, more machine learning? Forecasting is a good example, right? Can you augment all of FinOps? Probably not realistic, right? But there's been really good conversations about, are there certain capabilities that you can leverage a shared service for instead? So I think that's going to be interesting for us to be watching the trends of where the space goes. But I think we need a little bit clearer definition.
Yeah, it's far too late at night for me to tell you what I think about the term augmented FinOps. However, I do want to plug the episode FinOps Pod on FinOps about the dangers of automating FinOps practices.
That was a good one.
Because I can go on a rant of how bad it could be. So
teaser there, Joe caused a rolling production outage once in his FinOps practice. So yeah,
I told him it was a bad idea.
Thanks, Andrew, for bringing in the hot topic. Looks like we have another hand raised there. Anirban, I apologize if I did not pronounce your name right, but please correct me. And then if you have any questions or comments, we're happy to hear them.
Yeah, that was a correct pronunciation. Okay, so I mean, just to introduce myself, I'm pretty new to the FinOps space. Okay, so maybe my question is going to be a bit naive. Okay, so I'm in the business of deploying commercial products in a hybrid mode. Okay, so things like I particularly work in the integration space. Okay, so things like Apigee, MuleSoft, stuff like that. But these are just examples. My question is more like I have been going through this means the concept of tagging. Okay, how do we distribute costs when the product is deployed in containers and things like that. But then when we're dealing with commercial products, okay, there is limited scope of how we can tag things, how we can tag the containers that eventually get deployed onto this and in this hybrid structure wherein there is a SaaS control plane and the rest of it, the data plane is being managed and deployed by the consumers. Okay, so is there any do you guys see any trend wherein these kind of commercial vendors are enabling users to do a chargeback? Because in our case, we are running these commercial platforms, these commercial products as a platform inside the organization wherein different teams come and use them and we are supposed to do a chargeback for them. But then if it's a custom developed solution, then we have a lot of liberty of, okay, I can even tag every container that goes and gets deployed. But then when it's a commercial product, we're kind of bound by what is available, what is not. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, Ashley, did you raise your hand because you wanted to answer, or did you just want to ask a question after him?
No, I tried to answer a little bit. So I ran into this a lot towards my my end of my journey at Pearson, which was kind of our next journey of looking at these like third-party tools and like bringing in that type of consumption data as well. It is a bit of a challenge. I mean, you have to like do API calls for those things. I do want to get a call out, and I'm going to give JR a chance to talk about this, but the foundation's been talking a lot about open billing standards. And this is like an opportunity as a community for us to really say, what are the right key dimensions and metrics that we should be expecting to get from CSP providers? And I think that can go, one layer out to SaaS providers as well. So that's something collectively that we're working on and again, hoping to move the needle where more people will see these open billing standards and adapt to it. And maybe I'll let JR if he wants to chime a little further on that.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, what we've seen happen the last 3 years is that FinOps was very much just public cloud initially, and then it was like public cloud and hybrids, and then we saw like licensing come in, and now we're seeing, the platform conversation, the SaaS conversation, all these things. And so the issue where we've seen these more historic IT financial management sort of frameworks all over, they don't have the granularity for FinOps, and FinOps is all about like near real-time data and fast visibility, granular, timely, all that stuff that we want to put out to teams so they can improve their efficiency. And so the open billing data project that we're working on is really about providing a schema and providing those dimensions and metrics that actually mentioned to help give guidance to like all the types of platforms you mentioned, or the SaaS platforms who say, we want to enable our customers to manage our platforms in the same way they're managing, they're used to now managing public cloud spend. So definitely thinking about that, and we're seeing that I think really be the next wave.
Okay, thank you.
There is watch for in about a month or so, we'll have an announcement about that open billing data group. There's about 10 or 15 people from different clouds, different platforms, different companies all working together on it, and I think making good progress.
I was going to ask JR, how much buy-in are you getting from the CSPs to have that conversation with you guys?
They're very interested in it across a few different dimensions. We have, the top 4 cloud providers in North America, at least, are all involved in the conversation, either formally or informally, and have various reasons. Because it's the issue, largely the platform space, the cloud space, is that people are really confused by the data, and when confusion comes as a FinOps core issue, lack of trust comes in the data, lack of trust that they're billing correctly, lack of trust that you're telling them those things. And so we're trying to take that off the table with creating a common lexicon and really normalizing the terms so that you can compare apples to apples. Not to say this cloud is more or less expensive, but that we can understand what the bill means, and therefore we can trust that it's accurate and efficient.
I mean, billing errors is a big thing for us, right? A lot of our benefit of FinOps over the past 12 months has been detecting billing errors, right? Where discounts have not been applied properly, all that kind of stuff, right? So I think it's that the complexity of the bills is definitely a problem, right? Which makes it hard for people to really understand and detect those errors.
I'm not sure how others are. I am getting pinged to have dinner with my family, so I'm going to drop off and pass the time if anyone wants to stay on. But I wanted to say thank you so much for joining us in this. Looking forward to continuing the conversation.
Well, unless he makes somebody else a host, when he drops, we all drop.
But
thank you. I think this is a good time. Yeah, actually a good time to end because we are, everybody's got questions. Please feel free to keep asking questions in Slack, email us, get on events.finops.org, join all of the events. And we look forward to doing more of these with all of you. And a big thanks to Keith and Sara for answering tough questions and being just amazing presenters in general.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, team.
Everybody.
Bye. Cheers. Thanks, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.